Hello, welcome to the Rio Gaming Nexus YouTube channel. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy the video, and thanks for watching.
Once upon a time, in a world where technology was growing at an alarming rate, there existed a superhero named Codebreaker. His real name was Zaynemery, and he wasn't your typical superhero. He didn't have super strength, could fly, or even had X-ray vision. His superpower was far more complex and intricate, deciphering codes and cracking any encryption with ease. In a world where data and information were the most valuable commodities, Codebreaker was a modern-day Robin Hood, stealing information from the corrupt and giving it to the people. In this world, megacorporations controlled everything. The city was divided into sectors, each controlled by a different company. The people had no say in how they were being governed. Their lives were dictated by the whims of these corporations. This all started when the government handed over all public information to private companies to manage. It was supposed to be temporary, but these companies never gave it back. They hoarded the information for their own gain, and now every citizen was forced to pay a monthly fee just to access basic information. But some people couldn't afford it, so they turned to Codebreaker. Codebreaker had a network of informants that tipped him off about people who couldn't pay the fees. He would then hack into the system and give them the information they needed. To do this, he used his secret base of operations, which was hidden inside a junkyard. No one suspected that the mountain of junk was hiding a technological marvel. Inside his base, Codebreaker had computers with screens displaying multiple code feeds. He would watch these feeds looking for anomalies or anything out of the ordinary. When he found something interesting, he would launch an investigation. He would gather all the information he could, and then he would crack the code. Once he had the information, he would release it to the public. Sometimes the information was damning, exposing corporate corruption or government malfeasance. Other times it was mundane, like the location of a missing person or the results of a school exam. But no matter what the information was, the people loved it. They saw Codebreaker as a hero who was fighting for their rights. One day, Codebreaker received a tip from one of his informants. There was a new encryption protocol that the corporations were using. It was unbreakable, even by Codebreaker's standards. Intrigued, Codebreaker decided to investigate. He managed to get a sample of the encrypted data and brought it back to his lair. He spent weeks trying to crack the code, but it was no use. The encryption was too strong. Just when he was about to give up, he remembered a line of code that he had seen in the encrypted data. He ran a search for that line of code and found that it was part of a bigger program. The program was called Firewall, and it was developed by a brilliant but reclusive coder named Alice Bellweather. Firewall was designed to prevent unauthorized access to data, and it was so effective that it was being used by governments and corporations around the world. But Alice had created a backdoor into her own program. She had done this so that she could spy on the corporations and the government. She was the one who provided the tip to Codebreaker. Codebreaker knew that he needed Alice's help if he was going to crack the encryption. He sent her a message through his network, but she refused to help him. She said that she didn't trust him and that he might not be able to keep her secret. Codebreaker understood her concerns, but he convinced her to trust him. He promised to keep her identity a secret and to protect her if the corporations found out that she was helping him. Finally, Alice agreed to help Codebreaker. She sent him the key to the backdoor, and he used it to enter the encrypted data. Now that he had access to the data, Codebreaker was able to see everything that was happening in the city. He could see the corporations hoarding resources, polluting the environment, and exploiting the workers. He could also see the government turning a blind eye to it all. They were supposed to be protecting the people, but they had been bought and paid for by the corporations. Codebreaker realized that he was in too deep now. He was not just stealing information. He was exposing corruption and bringing down the system itself. The corporations noticed that someone was spying on them, and they launched a full-scale investigation. They wanted to find out who was responsible. Meanwhile, Codebreaker was working on releasing the information he had gathered to the public. He knew that the corporations would try to stop him, so he was prepared. He released the information in small bits, making it hard to track. He also used aliases so that the corporations wouldn't be able to trace the information back to him, but the corporations were too powerful. They managed to track down one of Codebreaker's sources and bring him to justice. They threatened him and forced him to give them information about Codebreaker. With the help of the informant, the corporations managed to track down Codebreaker's base. They sent in a team of mercenaries to take him down. But Codebreaker was ready for them. He had set up traps all over his base, and the mercenaries quickly found themselves in a war with machines. Some of them managed to survive the traps, but they were captured by the police. It turned out that Codebreaker had tipped off the police about the mercenaries before they attacked his base. The police were on the lookout for them and were able to capture them without much difficulty. But the corporations weren't done yet. They sent in a strike team to take Codebreaker down once and for all. This time, the team was led by a ruthless mercenary named John Slade. Slade was a cold-blooded killer with a score to settle. The corporations had promised him that if he took down Codebreaker, he would be given control of all of Codebreaker's technology. Slade and his men found Codebreaker's base and launched an attack, but they were met with heavy resistance. Codebreaker was fighting alongside a group of rebels who had been inspired by his actions. Together, they were able to hold off the strike team until reinforcements arrived. The police were there to help Codebreaker, but it was really a trap. The corporations had tipped off the police and they arrested Codebreaker. They charged him with hacking and stealing. They also accused him of inciting a riot and murdering several of their agents. But Codebreaker didn't care. He knew that he was right and that the corporations would never give him a fair trial. So he escaped from custody with the help of Alice. Now on the run, Codebreaker and Alice went into hiding. They changed their appearance and assumed new identities, but the corporations were still looking for them. They offered anyone who could bring them the duo $1 million. It seemed like the corporations would never stop hunting them, but Codebreaker had one last trick up his sleeve. He sent out a message to all of his followers, telling them that he was going to expose the biggest secret of all. The corporations had stolen all of the public information, but there was one thing that they hadn't been able to steal: the people's will to fight back. On the day of the big reveal, Codebreaker gathered all of his followers in the central plaza. He told them everything he had learned about the corporations and the government. He showed them how the corporations were exploiting them and how the government was corrupt. Then he dropped the biggest bombshell of all. He revealed his true identity to the world. He didn't care if he was arrested or killed. He had made his point and the people were ready to fight back. They attacked the corporation's facilities and offices. They stole back their information and destroyed the records that the corporations had stolen from them. The government tried to stop them, but the people were too angry. They had been living under the thumb of the corporations for too long and they were not going to take it anymore. In the end, the corporations had to give back all the information they had stolen. The government was forced to resign and new elections were held. The people finally had a chance to choose their own leaders. Codebreaker became a symbol of hope in a world where the people had been oppressed for too long. He showed them that it was possible to fight back and win. He was the hero that they had been waiting for. A hero who didn't need superpowers to be a legend. If you like this story, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. Your support means everything to us.